Hello, listeners of Marx and Vincentelli, the theater podcast that keeps on theatering because neither rain nor sleet nor whatever else is out there because we record from home. So we have no excuse. We have nowhere else to go. Well, actually we do, but we have no excuse. We cannot not do this. I'm Elisabeth Vincentelli, and I read reviews and features for the New York Times.
And I'm Peter Marks, former critic, now man about town. Actually, make that man about the planet.
I am so jealous of you. Like, you were in London over the summer, as our listeners know, because we did a whole episode about your escapades there.
Indeed.
And now you just came back from December in Krakow. That sounds fun.
Well, actually, yes. I was in Krakow, Poland, the fourth time I've been there in December. It actually was warmer there than it was in New York over the slightly more than a week that I was there. And I was there for the Divine Comedy Festival. It's a festival of Polish plays and actually plays from neighboring countries and some faraway countries. But, we don't have many play festivals in this country. We have Under the Radar coming up, and maybe we should even think about doing a show about what's on offer at UTR.
Oh, I think we should.
Yeah. But this was, I was invited first as a journalist. The first year I went, I was interested in what plays sort of on, right on the outside of Ukraine were being produced about the war. And then on subsequent years, I've been back either to write about it. I was on the jury one year, and this year I was invited as a guest.
And by the way, I sounded like I was jesting about being in Krakow, but I would kill to be at that festival.
It's your kind of thing, so, Elisabeth.
I suspect it is.
I think it's, and it's really, it's a breath of fresh air. The Polish theater throws all the rules out that we sort of abide by as a theater community here. They just don't believe in linear narrative per se. They do that sometimes, but there is just a freedom. Also, I think we may have spoken about this before. There really are very few playwrights in Poland. It's mostly directors who devise the productions with the help of an ancillary dramaturg, a person whose job isn't like a dramaturg here, really. They become kind of the person who writes down what's going on. Mm-hmm. So it was it's a freshness for an American. And I was there with some other Americans who were sampling the wares, possibly to bring things over, notably from places like Lincoln Center and from the Skirball in New York, our friend Jay Wegman.
I'm surprised, honestly, to hear that someone from Lincoln Center was there, because they have not brought in much foreign fare other than, I guess, English speaking in a lot, like since the days of the Lincoln Center Festival.
Correct.
Much missed.
Yes. Well, they actually are now, they help coordinate the Under the Radar Festival. And they house a few of the productions. Under the Radar, for those who don't know, is a very influential festival in New York in January that curates plays from around the world. Some American, but mostly overseas. And some of it quite exciting.
They tend to be on the smaller scale, I have to say. Like, they're not bringing huge...
Correct.
Spectacles, but they tend to be...
Correct.
On the smaller, more weirder, I guess, weirder for American theater habits.
Totally, and it's a real opportunity to. It was once under the auspices of the public theater, and now it's. I believe Mark Russell, who's directed it for many years, run it for many years. Mm-hmm. He now has to sort of find venues, or the shows have to find other venues. And this year it's every place from La Mama to Skirball to Lincoln Center will be presenting the work.
So I'm really curious. I don't know if you got a sense of that when you were in Poland, but Poland is not, okay, I don't want to badmouth Poland, but I don't think it's the most democratic country in Europe. But it's not one of the worst. I mean, it's not, it's not Belarus but they've had, issues with women's rights and gay rights. It's a very Catholic country. So what I'm wondering is did you get a sense of were there any issues pertaining to theater makers there? Because I feel like we're kind of maybe heading in that direction here.
Well, I don't think it's as authoritarian or as dogmatic as you're indicating. The theater
Yeah,
there
no, I
is
mean, it's not Hungary. It's not, yeah,
no. Yeah, the government was for about 8 years. There was a very oppressive right-wing government in Poland that has been replaced. And so there's a kind of interlude of a little more free expression, at least in terms of the government. And most theater in Poland is supported by the government, so that is an important element in how they do theater.
Yes.
It's very different from this country. But I would say that it's. I think its theater in some ways is almost freer than ours in terms of the material. Yes, in terms of some of the values that are ingrained in the society regarding LGBTQ, which does crop up in plays, but certainly not with the regularity that it does in this country. And there are a lot of up and coming women directors in Poland, and they're introducing some really interesting content to the mix. So one of the things is it's refreshing in a way. There isn't quite the same kind of guardrails on the subjects, certainly the sexual subjects that crop up in Polish theater. This year, I found it a little bit navel gazing. There, it was a little more introspective about Polish society than I'd seen before, and it was so maybe a little less interesting to an international audience. It's very hard to encapsulate, to generalize too much, because I didn't see everything, and I was very select about what I did see this time. But I'll just talk about one show. I just want to mention the one piece that I really liked was by the guy who actually runs the festival. His name is Bartosz Sidlowski, and he did a piece called "The Trial of Eligiusz Niewiadomski." I have no idea if I'm saying that even close to how you say it, because Polish is a language of all consonants, and I can't figure out how to say things. But it's really the story of the assassination, of the trial of a right-wing assassin in the 1920s who killed the president of the country, and it was a really interesting use of film, and culminated in one of the most extraordinary scenes I've seen on a stage in years. Almost hard to, if I had to write about it, it would be hard, Elisabeth. But after like about an hour and 20 minutes of almost verbatim, or it felt like, of a trial that's broadcast black and white onto a screen in front of you, they do the trial in a separate chamber of this theater in a little community called Nowa Huta, a city outside of a part of Warsaw that was once a workers' city, housing. It's a really interesting place, very from the Soviet era. But anyway, long story short, it culminates after the trial, and he's convicted and executed in a memorial in which something like 36 actors procession onto the stage and lavish a portrait of him with flowers, with toys, with mementos, and the music pounds louder and louder, and the scene gets wilder and wilder, almost like it felt like Hieronymus Bosch. It turns into, in a kind of everyone acting out. I can't quite. It captivated me in such a visceral way. And when I talked to the director afterwards and told him I was just blown away by how this played out, because the two parts of the play were so different, he just shrugged and said, "This is Poland." And so that was a remarkable moment for me in how a director of very peculiar vision can distill that and put that on a stage. I thought there were a lot of connections to the United States at that moment, in terms of the frenzy of that scene, because we're going through such a frenzied time in this country. But anyway, I could go on and on, but that was sort of the...
It's interesting what you're saying about the use of the music and sound as this visceral thing when it gets really loud, because I actually Skirball Center, which is linked to NYU, which I like seeing NYU put their money to good use.
Right, I agree.
They brought this Polish director named Łukasz Twarkowski. Who's another kind of big deal in Europe. And it was a show called The Employees that also takes place on a spaceship and culminates in this incredibly, deafeningly loud I want to say like it sounded like a rave. Like I was at a rave. Like I was in a rave, like a real one. That's how loud it was. And of course, I loved it because I love anything loud, as you may know. But I feel like it's but it kind of reaches to this kind of like animal part of the brain, where as an audience member, I feel like it's a really effective. I mean, it has to be used very carefully, obviously, as a device. But I feel like the sound. I've had that conversation with some people, but like I feel sound and sound design is so underused in American theater. They're like, it's such, I see so many plays where the sound is just so bad. And it's not just, I mean, it's technically bad, but also there's no thought put into it and how it's part of the experience. It's like such a huge part of a show that usually is like, oh yeah, well, I guess we have to have something. It's really annoying.
Yeah,
but the funny thing about Farkowski, like that thing was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours long. And everybody I talked to was like, oh my God, like you should see his masterpiece, which is like, I can't remember, like 8 hours long of insanity. And I was like, well, I don't know who's going to bring that over.
Yeah,
I wish the Armory would kind of wake up at this point and do something. It's like bring it over. Or...
Well, we know from what we're getting, the kinds of shows we get now. It's actually they're shrinking in duration, not expanding.
Yeah.
So the idea that audiences could endure, even in Poland, by the way, they leave at intermission if it's if they're not engaged. It's not like everyone's got this endless patience or tolerance for. And I saw a couple of longer pieces, but you're right. There is this kind of lack of, and I'm sure sound designers would disagree with us if we had one on, which actually is not a bad idea, because the elements of theater that we sometimes want to see more of, they do invest a lot of thought into that, which makes me ask you the question, Elisabeth. And you're an influencer. Why do we not see? And I know you hunger for this yourself, but why do you think the interest in international festivals seems to be contracting, not expanding? The whole idea of aggregating theater for audiences seems to be dissipating, not exploding.
I think part of it, is very practical. I think visas have become very expensive, and the process has become very expensive. And also, I'm listening to podcasts or I read like European news, and people don't really want to come here at this point.
Right.
Like artists are like, yeah, I don't know, why am I going to, bust my ass, spend thousands of dollars on visas, go to that country where someone in my company maybe stopped at the border. They don't want to come. I can't blame them.
Right.
So that's very practical.
Lucas could not come into this country, by the way. The playwright for the employees was not allowed in the country.
I mean, that's just typical. That's typical. But also, I feel that there's a dearth of leaders who are going to go fight. There's some, we mentioned Jay Wegman, I think is one of them. But I think there's a dearth of leaders who are ready to fight tooth and nail to bring that stuff over. It has to come from the top.
Right.
And I'm not feeling that desire. And then it kind of like, and because there's nothing around, people don't see it, and then they don't realize that they want it. So the more you see, the more you want to see. And if you don't see anything, you're not going to want to see it.
Yeah, it atrophies.
I mean, it's so influential because then it's also that American directors are not exposed. It's not like movies. You can watch any movie, but American theater directors are not exposed to other ways. Remember when we had Leah de Bessanet on and we asked her like about some influential shows that she had seen. And she mentioned the Ariane Mnouchkine, like I can't remember which one exactly, but she mentioned the French director Ariane Mnouchkine and seeing one of her shows at Lincoln Center, the festival.
I remember it.
And okay, so now we have Leah de Bessanet. And by the way, I finally caught up with her Ragtime, which is superbly staged. And in a very often, the movement in that is really, like the opening scene alone is, like, I mean, if there was a Tony for opening scene direction, I wouldn't. That's got my vote. But anyway, so I think we're not seeing that. I think, and then people are, and it's hard. Like Scribbles shows a lot of great stuff, but it's for like 2 or 3 days. So if you miss it, you miss it. It's a very small window. BAM is like, okay, well, we're gonna bring National Theater or Royal Shakespeare. I mean, that's pretty, like. I mean, it can be very good, of course, but it's also very conventional. I mean, that's very acceptable to bring this stuff here.
Right.
But I was wondering, actually, okay, so since we're kind of on the behind the Iron Curtain right now, I think we need to talk about someone who has a very strong connection to that, whom we lost recently. And I want to talk about Tom Stoppard, who, of course, was born in Czechoslovakia, as it was then known, in 1937, and his family left, I think, right before the war. And he grew up mostly in England. But so we had like a very feisty text exchange about this. I'm not a fan of Stoppard. It's one of those things where I can see, objectively, I can see the importance. It doesn't do anything for me on an emotional or even intellectual level. It just doesn't. I've never clicked with his work. But what am I missing? Like, why did you, for instance, think in 2 minutes or less?
Well,
tell me.
Yeah. I hear you. No, we're playing catch up with the news. Also, we should say to our listeners, we took a couple of weeks down just because things got a little bit crazy for both of us, and I traveled, and Elisabeth had about 400,000 stories and reviews to do. But so we are catching up with this issue. Stoppard has always, for me, been a beacon of cerebral smartness married to an entertaining sense of language. Those things really sort of connect with me, Elisabeth. And I think the subjects he takes on are so daring and adventurous and so far-flung. And he really tried over his career and was responsive to this notion that he was cold, which is also something that afflicted Sondheim's reputation. I thought both unfairly, and I thought he did some very moving plays. Arcadia, for one. I even think Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead is actually quite a moving, and I prefer it actually to Waiting for Godot in some ways, in terms of a sense of existentialism and an understanding of language and its use to sort of find people in isolation in the universe. And I have to tell you, actually, I have a story about Stoppard of my own. I'll tell you very briefly. When I was transitioning from reporter to critic at the New York Times back in like 96, I think it was, I was asked to moderate a discussion with Stoppard and Doug Wright, who was writing Quills, or just having Quills produced. His production of Arcadia, Stoppard's, was being done at the Wilma Theater in Philadelphia, and I went down there to moderate a conversation. And the next week, I was becoming a critic at the New York Times. Weird. And Stoppard was obsessed with this subject that I could somehow transform into a theater critic mid-career. And he spent, we did this, he kept asking me about it. Every time I tried to ask questions, he would ask me something about this. And this bled over into a long night at a bar where he asked me 100 million questions about what was going through my mind, as if I thought he was going to write a play about it. It was remarkable. And obviously, part of this was just the curiosity that the man had about the world. And I found that very moving, not just in conversation, but also dramatically. Plays like Travesties, where he takes on Dadaism, and Jumpers, which was sort of about quantum physics and things you could never imagine. Some of them were I didn't love Coast of Utopia. I thought it was overdone and too much. And I didn't love that play, but I loved Rock and Roll, where he takes on the sort of the Velvet Revolution. And Leopoldstadt, his last big play, I guess, was very sentimental, and it was really a reckoning for him with his Jewishness, which that identity came to him very late in life as an understanding. But yeah, and of course, people will remember that he was the screenwriter also with Shakespeare in Love, which was,
and Brazil, which I much prefer to
Shakespeare in Love. Yeah, there were many worlds that Stoppard inhabited, but I respect that you didn't respond to it. It's it's so personal sometimes how we who we choose to find as our muses, our mentors.
I will say that I very much admire the scope of his interest. That feels very rare. if you count the stage work and the screen work, the scope of his interest and the styles that he could work within is really, really kind of staggering. And in fact, he has the most Tonys for best play of any playwright.
Is that right?
He has 5.
I didn't know
he has
that.
5.
I didn't know that.
And so 5 between 68 and 2023. With 68 was Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and Leopoldstadt was the last one in just 2 years ago. And one of the things we were talking about when he died was, I think you said, like, is he the last of the, how did you put it, like the
canonical playwrights?
And I
we had a little bit of a shouting match
tiff
on texting.
Well, but here's the thing. So, of course, like, how do you define that? I think one could say, well, number of productions, influence on others. But also, are the plays done, are the plays revived? Are they kept in the repertory? And and I would agree that he was one of the last. I would say, I think the only one I can think of, and this is where we had a disagreement, the only one I can think of who's still alive and who's on that level is Carol Churchill.
And the more I've thought about it, I think you're right.
Again, someone that
I think you're right.
But I can't say I'm a huge fan, but like, it's another one where objectively I can say, yes, Stoppard is one. Yes, she is one. And so, but the interesting conversation to me is like, okay, so how, like, for instance, do you have to have had like one or more Broadway productions? She only had 2, and both very brief, very short. And Stoppard obviously had a lot more, and like lots of revivals. I mean, it was really ever. Oh, by the way, I only saw him in the flesh once. I didn't talk to him, but I was sitting right in front of me at Harry Potter.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So, which I was very impressed.
But you're right. I mean, first of all, I thought a lot about Churchill after you said this, and we had a back and forth about it. I've always admired Churchill's work, and I was really trying to, this idea of the giants who roam the earth. And on that level, I was trying to think of someone who breaks through into the mainstream of culture. And Stoppard, isn't even there the way that, not quite the way, Williams or O'Neill or even Neil Simon.
Miller.
Neil Simon,
Arthur Miller, I would say, really broke through.
Absolutely. And he's going to be done again this season with Death of a Salesman. And there's apparently a great All My Sons in London right now, I hear. But anyway.
And there's an All My Sons, I think, at Berkeley Rep, I want to say, with Jimmy Smits and his wife, his real wife.
Oh, interesting. But so this idea of like a canon of work that gets redone, and I hope that's the case with Carol Churchill. It's certainly the case with August Wilson, for example. But the fact of the matter is, there's a dearth, and there are great playwrights. There are people like Lynn Nottage and Paula Vogel, and who have tons of plays and are still being produced, and maybe it remains to be seen if they get that kind of traction in the culture long term. But I do feel like we're this whole sense of recession in the theater, and how it's taken as a something that's so fundamental to someone's cultural life. It feels like it's going in the wrong direction.
Part of me, I am so against AI. I can't even. Anyway, it just gives me the creeps just talking about it. But I think one of the side effects maybe of the rise of AI is that it might maybe create a demand for something that feels very real. And that would be a theatrical experience, because you can't really, you're there or you're not. I mean, the idea of being surrounded by people. When I'm at the theater, I always look around me. I love seeing people like all looking in one direction. 99.9% of them are kind of watching that one thing. And I find that very exciting. Like there's just a few other, like if you go to a music show, like people are on their phones all the time at music show. Like they really experience it filtered through the phone. At a theater, like it's still pretty free from that. So I think it's one of the very, very last places where you have that sense of like experiencing something in the moment that is there, that's yours and yours alone for like 2 hours. That feels, and I think that there may be more of a demand. The thing that scares me about it is that if there's more of a demand, I really think that the economics are so hideous. The price of tickets is such a huge problem. I really have no idea how to solve that. There's none.
Yeah.
Like when someone like George Clooney is doing a show, yeah, I mean, they're going to charge $900 because they can,
right.
because they will be sold out. Like, why wouldn't they do it? I mean, if I was a producer, I mean, but it's very sad.
Yeah, well, it's true. And when you talk about a show like that, when I mention I saw it to people, there's almost like a what's the word? I can't even think of it. It's there's an onus. There's a sort of sense of, well, how did only for rich people, and and I know I can say yes, I got comped, but do you know what I mean? There's like almost not shame, but like embarrassment. Because it's like you feel like you're one-upping somebody, not because of that old thing about you have to see this, but I got to see this because it was like almost like the same thing with the Springsteen show. Like it was so remember how expensive that one was,
which I never saw.
Right,
but in a way, I felt the same way. I saw this fall. There's been quite a few shows that were held in very, very small places. Often in apartments, and I think I saw one where there were 6 of us in the audience. By design, we were in a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was the 2 actors, and was it 5 or 6 of us? I can't remember, like 5 or 6 people at a time. That was the show's capacity. That is almost as exclusive as George Clooney in its own way. I don't know how to, and I thought that was a wonderful show, Slanted Floors. Very good, but I mean, how do you define exclusivity? I mean, like the bragging rights of having Slanted Floors.
Yeah.
If you're into that kind of stuff, yeah, it's going to be pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
And under the radar and all that stuff. Some of those shows are hot tickets, but they tend to be in small places, often smallish.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I don't know how to resolve that. And then you see shows that are doing really well. I'm going to segue into, like, I was looking at the Broadway grosses, and like a show that I love, Liberation, is not selling well. So if you want to see Liberation, you can probably get a pretty affordable ticket, because right now they're there. You can go. They're playing to, I don't know, half capacity or something. It's just really saddens me. It's a wonderful play. Cannot recommend it enough. But
yeah, I don't know if
how do you solve that?
Well, I don't know. Are we training an audience? Aside from the inveterate theater goer, are we training theater goers to think that they have to know the name of somebody in the show? They have to be and I don't mean like just a TV star.
Yeah, right.
It has to be singular. And, Laurie Metcalf, who's in Little Bear Ridge Road,
of course,
is not enough of a draw. That show is closing as well. By Sam Hunter, who we've had on the show, by the way. Early on, we had him several years ago. I think it was even when Terry was still alive. I think we had him on.
Yes. I think it was the 3 of us. Yeah.
But I think the danger of doing that kind of star-driven stuff is that you have to keep feeding the beast, and when you don't, the beast retreats to its cave, and and nobody shows up to try to get the beast out again.
Did you see the Broadway League release latest stats for the year? And I think they were the percentage of people who buy tickets for Broadway. The percentage who live in the tri-state area has gone down, I think.
Right. It's tourist-driven. It's totally a tourist, yeah.
Same for people who live in the 5 boroughs. So if you're not able to cultivate a local audience, and a play like Liberation or Little Bear Ridge Road, the one with Laurie Metcalf, which is also, Laurie Metcalf is great, and the play is wonderful, and it still couldn't find its audience. And those 2 shows are really really great for a local audience who's curious about things and ideas and good acting to go see. And they still couldn't get New Yorkers or people in the rest area to come. It's just so, oh my God. Oh, and, but Masquerade,
Yeah.
that I saw.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Masquerade, like now that's packing it in. It's very expensive.
Well, tell people what it is.
Okay, Masquerade is an immersive version of the Phantom of the Opera, a show that I like. I like Phantom. I like the score. I wouldn't call myself a fan, PHAN, but I really like the show. But that version of the show did not work for me. But the icing on the cake, and I mean icing literally because it happened on a 30-degree night. The night I saw it, there was a fire alarm and halfway through the show. And so you have to imagine, it's kind of like Sleep No More. It's directed by Diane Paulus, I think. So it's kind of like Sleep No More. So they have like 3 or 4 casts going on at the same time at various stages. And so each cast is performing for, I want to say 50 to 60 people at a time. So it's very intimate. But there's 3 or 4, so there's maybe 350 people in the building, which is this multi-level rehabbed former art supply store. So halfway through, the alarm sounds. We all have to leave. Of course, everybody has their coats at the coat check. It's 30 degrees outside. We have to wait outside. It's nobody's fault. I'm not blaming anything, but it was just really not fun. And then I thought, so we're freezing, we're miserable. And then they resumed the show and they offered to go back or I'm going to go back. I just could not. I'm going to do it again. Actually, I would like to see another cast just to see how the actors are different. But it is such a weird thing to see Phantom with this canned orchestra because it's not a live orchestra. The logistics make it completely impossible. So you have this canned music and the sound, speaking of sound, oh my God, that is not a great sound. And the actors are very close to you and it's just, people are really dressed up and it feels like this ride.
Is it like Sleep No More?
Well, it's a lot more directed because you follow, there's a story, so you kind of follow.
Got
I'm
it.
not
You're
sure.
not like free to roam.
No. You follow the actor there, and they do the story, so they do the show. Although I have to say that I'm not entirely sure that if you don't know the show,
that you would get
it
it.
would be very easy to understand what's happening.
I assume they're counting on it being, something that everybody has seen,
I assume that for the most part people have seen it, but it is. Although I will say that the scene when we take an escalator down to the bowels of the art supply store where the Phantom lives, and we're all waiting there. And when he comes in on that boat, I have to say I was in heaven. I felt like I was.
That's
in
funny.
Broadway, Disneyland.
Well, there you go.
And
see?
because it's really, really close to where you are. And I thought this doesn't get more insane than this because it's on this little boat.
Not cheesy?
Well, 100%. Yeah, like really cheesy. But I thought, wow.
Right.
That kind of hit a sweet spot of like fromage that was really
All right.
an intense bleu.
Oh, an intense
there.
bleu fromage.
Yeah, it was intense bleu.
Oh my goodness.
I will say it's quite the experience. It's completely demented, which is fitting for that show. It's kind of like an insane
and I think it's doing
experience.
very, very, very well. I gather.
Yeah, they keep extending it.
Yeah.
But as long as, the alarm doesn't go off when it's freezing and you're outside, especially the women really turn up. Everybody dresses up. And the women really turn up wearing very practically nothing. And you can imagine in that cold, it was just really unpleasant. So your option is to go to the Brooklyn Diner, which is a themed diner right around the corner.
Oh, there you go. Of course.
It's kind of insane.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so should we talk about some of our favorite shows?
Yeah, we have a few minutes left. Tell us, Elisabeth, just give us a taste of what your best of the year was like.
Well, I can't even think of it as a best of the year, but some shows that really I enjoyed tremendously. Okay, so Liberation, I've already mentioned. I saw it off-Broadway and then Broadway, same cast, same production, really wonderful show. Picture of Dorian Gray, like very much unique artistic project that I feel they really pulled off. The Cherry Orchard at St. Anne's with our favorite Nina Hoss.
Yes.
I think
I love that.
always in agreement on Nina Hoss.
I thought the production was really good.
I think you saw that Hedda, that movie version of Hedda that she's in right now.
I'm a moth to her flame. Yes, the movie version, which I didn't know about till I read about it in the New York Times on their best movies of the year list. I thought she was fabulous in as they've turned it into they've let's not give too much away, but it's the story has been. It's
been everywhere. I think you can say it's like.
Oh, okay. So they spin it as it's now it's a lesbian story, basically and it's really, I mean, that aspect of it is so deftly handled. In terms of the relationship between Lovborg and Hedda.
Yeah, because Lovborg is now Eileen Lovborg, played by our fave Nina Hoss. It works so well.
And it all takes place at a party, and the atmospherics are beautifully rendered.
In the 1950s, it's
the
great.
Costumes are great.
I absolutely loved it. Oh, it's just so wonderful. Okay, then a show that I saw on Broadway that really made me so happy. I got out of that show. I was walking on a cloud. I wish I could mainline it like every week or when I need like a little pick-me-up. I love Just in Time. Jonathan Groff was on this show. That show, our show or the podcast. What he does in Just in Time is so beyond anything that I was expecting from him. Because the sense of joy and just like delivering pure entertainment to us in the audience is so palpable. It's really like you realize, oh my God, it's so great to see a performer who's having a ball. Either that or he's like the most amazing actor at pretending. But I believe he's really enjoying himself tremendously.
You know who he reminds me of? This is going to sound crazy. Carol Burnett.
Oh yeah.
Because I think he could carry, that as you say, that joie de vivre, that sense of vivaciousness. Would work in a weekly variety show in the golden age of television. There's something uncanny about that, and you realize how few actors can pull that off.
Yeah, it's really hard. This cannot be recast. I don't even know how.
They have an understudy, and gets very vociferous applause from what I can tell. But you're right. It's going to have to be somebody very very plugged into that kind of energy. I'm sure they'll find someone I hope. But he's a very hard act to follow. That's the other thing. Who wants to try?
Oh God, yeah. And speaking of which, actually, did you see Weir?
I don't even know what that.
At the Cherry Lane, Weir at the Natalie Palamides solo show at.
No.
Dude, I wrote about her. It was one of my favorite shows of the year. Absolutely.
Spelled W-E-I-R?
It's W-E-E-R. Weir.
No.
Okay, that's the best. Natalie Palamides is a clown from LA, and she wrote this solo show. She writes her own stuff, but she's done a lot of stuff. But she does a lot of voiceover for cartoons, actually, because she has that kind of weird voice. But this show it's basically a take on rom-coms, like classic 1990s rom-com. She plays both characters, the men and the women, but like her body is split in two vertically. So the left part is the man and the right part is the woman.
You mean costume-wise?
So she'll face the costume-wise, makeup-wise, hair, everything.
That's so cool.
Like it's completely very thorough, like up, down. So she orients herself differently facing the audience depending on who she's playing. And I will just say that this show includes like a sex scene. It includes a shower scene, which I will never unsee. And there's a splash zone. It is so committed. When I saw it, she was already covered in bruises. She really like throws herself. She's so banged up. It's completely fearless. But the funny part about this is I wrote about her for the Times. I interviewed her, and we were meeting at the Cherry Lane theater, and two fun things emerged from that interview. One is that she doesn't write a script. She just has this. She has this freak memory for the staging, and she remembers it. She knows how to do it. She doesn't really, when she writes her script, she doesn't actually puts it down. But the other thing is like a huge influence on her was Charles Ludlam and the Ridiculous Theater. But as it turned out, she had never actually seen any of Charles Ludlam's plays, and there happened to be one, Gallus, happening when I was interviewing her. So I took her to go see it. And we went to see that Charles Ludlam play of a playwright and performer that she idolized without actually having seen him, only reading his stuff and hearing about him. And it was quite an experience. I can tell you, it was at Little Island, and seeing Gallus with Natalie Palamides is a highlight of my life.
That's so great.
Not just the year.
That's great.
My life. It was great. It was just this, like, you could feel like the wheels turning, and it was just like, what an experience. It was so great. And then I wanted to give like a great, also mention the latest David Cale show, Blue Cowboy.
Oh, yeah.
Which I absolutely adored, and I really cried, but also because there was a big mention of a dog in it, and I'm very sensitive to this kind of stuff. And I was so convinced that it was based on a true story that I spent the entire car ride back. I was with a friend who was driving, scrolling David Cale's Instagram account because I was convinced that everything was going to be, like I would say, the real people in his feed, which of course didn't happen because it was made up.
That's great.
But I was so bamboozled by the storytelling. And that was at the Bushwick Star, and that was also did really well, actually. That was that kept being extended, and that really found its audience. So like that really gives me hope. When this happens, a show finds its audience. Did you see it?
I didn't. I wanted to, but I didn't.
He's great. Anyway, so that was my.
Well, we could go on and on and on, Elisabeth, but
yes.
And we should end on a note of hope. So I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear you had. As I've often noted, you have this wonderful perch where you get to see a lot of things and write about them that otherwise maybe we wouldn't know about. So props to you.
Well, I believe in kissing a lot of frogs. And,
well,
hope springs eternal. There's always a great show around the corner. I truly, truly believe that. I think we're going to try to do one or two more this year. So I don't want to start giving my prophecies and my wishes for 2026. I'm going to save that for another episode. But I think that's it for now. So do visit our page, marksvincentelli.substack.com. You can follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Marks and Vincentelli. We're both on social media. Big props to our producer, Adam Gold, and Robin Sunderland, who does our Instagram page. And I'm sure he's going to find more embarrassing photos of us to put there.
And thanks for listening. And happy holidays, and we'll talk to you soon.